Renegade Online.
Their track for Avatar, Fire and Ash, 110 million opening. 110. Now remember, the first two Avatar films are still to this day, even unadjusted for inflation, two of the 5 biggest grossing films of all time. Okay? Just going raw dollars. Let me show you why I'm a little concerned with this. Okay? Check this out. Avatar, the first one in 2009. If you look right here, opening weekend of 77 million. Nothing awesome, nothing crazy. Even for 2009, nothing like, oh my God, this was good. 134 million in 2022. Again, in 2022, not a particularly like super high-end crazy, especially for a movie that winds up finishing at 2.3 billion, right? See 134 million opening, we saw a $77 million opening today. Would we go, oh my God, that movie's going to do 3 billion? Hell no. But the one in 2009 did. In fact, it went almost 11x or a little over 11x. It opened at $77 million. It finished at $785 million. That's an 11x off of a 77 million opening weekend. That, ladies and gentlemen, in the business world is what is referred to as retarded. That's insane. Yeah, not a huge fan of the movie, but I have mad respect for what it pulled off. Forget the worldwide box office for a second, and I'm going to show you why. Opening weekend, December of 2022, 134 million. Now, that's just shy of twice as much money as the first Avatar movie that came out 13 years earlier. Now, if we just do ticket price inflation from 2009 to 2022, I could reasonably tell you with a pretty high degree of certainty that everybody who saw it opening weekend in 2009 went back and saw it opening weekend again in 2022. In 2022, we had way more premium format screens, way more IMAX screens, way higher ticket prices. You factor all these things in, and you would expect, or you should expect, from 2009 to 2022, the sequel over a first movie, if you get the same butts and seats, to roughly double its box office. And it did. Respectively, it pretty much did. Okay, it went from 77 to 134. Here's where things got rough. It did not do an 11x in the box office again. It did about a 5x, which a 5x on a $134 million opening weekend, a 5x is still retarded. That's nuts. That's one of the best box office leg outs, especially for a film that starts that high up the food chain in terms of opening weekend revenue. That is still bonkers. I still don't know anybody who saw it. Well, I know. Okay, Drunk 3PO saw it 37 times. Probably Drunk 3PO alone is probably responsible for at least 1 million of the opening weekend for Fire and Ash, or excuse me, for The Way of Water. So 134 million. Now, here's the problem. When you're looking at the leg out, again, you went from an 11x or a little over 11 to now 5. The leg out, no matter how you shake it, no matter how good it is, it got cut in half. Now, granted, that was over the course of 13 years. Okay, 13 years. And again, the effects and the visual wow factor of Avatar from 2009, it just ain't there anymore because every movie features CGI that basically looks like this. Even though Cameron's is probably of a higher quality, I grant you that, but the wow factor ain't there. That did 134 million. That was 3 years ago, guys and girls. If you're telling me now that we're looking at 110 million, the audience is now officially in retreat. I mean, you think about 800 million back in 2009. Think about this, 785 million domestically for the 2009, the first Avatar. Guys, that's almost $1.5 billion in domestic box office today. That'd be almost $1.5 billion. Go back and look at what people were paying for ticket price back then. Now go look at what people are paying on average for opening weekend for PLF and, God forbid, IMAX. An IMAX ticket is like $22, $23. A PLF ticket, which way 10 times more people are going to see things on PLF now because we have 10 times more screens today than we had in 2009. But those tickets are $17. So we go back to Deadline's projection here of $110 million. That's down $24 million. And granted, we're a month out. We're a month out. These numbers could very easily change. But again, we're talking about today. We're talking about today when this projection, this early tracking came out. We're talking about being down $24 million. Being down, almost 20% from the opening weekend of the last movie 3 years ago. And we're seeing a trend of the leg out having declined by more than half from the first movie in 2009 to the second one. Where is this one going to wind up? Is this movie even going to be able to hit $2 billion again? The thing is that, you put these Avatar movies together, especially the last one, which we explained earlier why it cost more money than this one is being suggested that it cost, is because of you're not having to reinvent a very, very expensive custom wheel that you built to do The Way of Water. Use that again for Fire and Ash. Use that again for Avatar 4. So collectively, still these movies need to perform. And this is one of those movies that, yes, it's going to still probably need $1.5 billion to cover all the costs involved, because Disney is going to, whatever they really spent to produce this, or they amortized towards this production or allocated towards it based on the concurrent shooting of 2.5 movies, Disney's going to drop another easy minimum. Disney's going to be dropping like $200 million on marketing this thing. There's no way they're not. And yes, they're going to have a lot of additional marketing tie-ins that will enhance the Disney cash spend on marketing. This is still a movie that's going to need to make a ton of money. And I'm thinking that we'll probably get a little bit more color, or granular, or a granular level color as we get closer to the release date of what the costs are. Right now, again, the 250 figure has been floating out there, 400 million for the last one you see right here, 250, 400. We all know how accurate sometimes those things can be, which is to say, not much at all. It's in the 100 to 130 million range, and they're putting the median at 110 here. You don't get to those numbers unless it's a 4-quad movie. Fire and Ash is strong with men and women in first choice, mostly men, but also solid enough with women. It's behind the first tracking choice numbers of Avatar: The Way of Water, which opened to 134, and that's just fine. Note, unlike most Marvel Studios movies, Avatar movies are appointment viewing. Audiences seek out the best 3D, IMAX, and premium large format seats. There's no Easter eggs going on a la Marvel movie, which require an immediate rush out by fans. So, meaning to say, it's not as front-loaded. And that's been proven in the past. My concern is, if it opens at 110, can it leg out to a 5X again, like the last one 3 years ago? Again, it's harder to compare Avatar 2 to the first Avatar film, as they were 13 years apart. And they were released in two completely different eras of theatrical exhibition. In 2009, we were reaching peak theatrical exhibition in terms of how that puppy was running. 2022, we had just come out of government closures across the planet. People, in some cases, changing habits. Things were moving to streaming a lot faster than before, which, of course, was a mistake. So, again, it's going to be interesting to see. Can this movie get to $2 billion? Avatar: A Way of Water's tracking indicated 150 to 175 opening 3 years ago, but the sequel came in below that at 134. What went wrong? Tracking was working off the gas and comparison to Sony Marvel's Spider-Man No Way Home, the holiday season prior, 2021, which posted the second biggest domestic opening ever at 260, behind Avengers Endgame 357. For Avatar: A Way of Water to come out and open at 134, 13 years after the original movie's 77 million opening, well, that's fantastic. Nothing to dig. And like we just explained, I completely agree with that. When we're talking about the opening for Avatar: Fire and Ash, consider Avatar: Way of Water's domestic start essentially the ceiling in regards to a first weekend comp. Avatar: The Way of Water did a 5x multiple off its domestic opening for a final haul of 688. So will this repeat it? even starting out at maybe potentially, and we're, 3 weeks away, at least at this point, from an opening, can it match the performance of the second one? Just in raw dollars. And I granted, obviously inflation between 22 and now, not as pronounced as, say, when we're comparing movies that came out in 2019 compared to now. There's still some. This kind of movie, big blockbuster, big action, Marvel stuff, we know who the audience is for that. There's really very few kiddie tickets for that by comparison to, say, Zootopia. And most of these things are going to be in PLF, in IMAX, in 3D. People are going to be paying top dollar to see it, like they said. There is an audience for this. I don't understand it, but there is an audience for this.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.